We'll start on Peches Amud Aleph, and we'll start from Ein Klialach Mekadesh. So two dots, a vessel for liquids won't sanctify the dry. Dr. Stein for teaching yesterday. Okay, thank Hashem that you're able to learn Torah every day. It's about learning. We should have the basic English immediately. Okay, we're coming close to the end of this parak, Mizbeach Mekadesh, learning about how the vessel, something that's put into a vessel, becomes consecrated. And so we've been learning that it has to be put in, a liquid has to be put into a liquid vessel, and a dry has to be put into a dry vessel. We learned that that's only if it's a measuring vessel, but if it's another type of container, then that would still, what they're called, the mizrak. In Hebrew, it's called the mizrak. It's the container that's used for sprinkling the blood. It's a type of bowl. So that would sanctify even if it's dry because it was used for both. Right now, we spoke about if it wasn't filled yesterday, right? If it wasn't filled all the way to the top, then it didn't consecrate. Unless he had intention of filling it more, then is this correct?
I don't know if I remember. Was there two opinions? There was one that mentioned this like third set of vessels, and then there was another opinion that this third set was really like describing one of the first two.
I'm not sure. Okay, well, let's start from here. It says, "En kli alach mekadesh." A vessel that's used for liquid won't consecrate the dry, and then the Mishnah goes on and says the dry won't consecrate the liquid. Rav says that Vitema Ravasi, some say it's Ravasi. When it does this, it could be because they were so close that it's hard to know who it was said. Like a mashal for this is Rabbi Chadakov would tell people things, and people didn't know if it was coming from the Rebbe or if it was coming from himself. So people, till today they don't know. They heard from Rabbi Chadakov. They don't know if that means the Rebbe told them. So it's Rav says, and some say that it was Ravasi. Ravasi was a Talmud of Rav. So they're not sure where it comes from. That a liquid, a cup or a bowl that's used for liquid, ein mekadshin likariv. It won't consecrate the dry food, which means like let's say the flour, plain flour, to be offered on the mizbeach. Aval mekadshin lipasul, but it consecrates it enough to ruin it. That once it goes in it, it's not allowed to leave the temple courtyard. And if it does leave the temple courtyard, then it becomes pasul. So that much it does consecrate it. So it's like partially in, enough to mess it up, but not enough to allow it to be offered. No, it's not. It doesn't have to do with intent. It has to do with if the right vessel was used for it.
If you put in the wrong vessel, right vessel, he takes it out.
Yeah, but that doesn't have to do with his intent. That has to do with which vessel it was in, right? Yeah, if it would become a puzzle because of tumah or because it left the temple. Ikad masila, aha. Some taught this statement of Rav and Rabasi on the following brisa. The brisa says, "Ein mivim menachos u'nesachim minchas behema." You don't bring the flour offering, the meal offering, or the libations, or the meal offering that comes together with the sacrifice, because every sacrifice had a certain amount of flour that came along with it. Three yisaron for the bull and 2 yisaron for the ram. You don't bring it ubikurim or bikurim as well, which is the first fruits. You don't bring it from min hamiduma. Miduma means a mixture of truma and chulin. Yeah, truma is what's been removed to give to the kohen. So if that has been mixed in, what's holy trumas, but mixed in with other mundane foods, it's called miduma. It's a mixture. So you can't bring the carbon mincha from if it's mixed in, if there's truma mixed in. And you definitely can't bring it may arlo klayakerem, things that are absolutely prohibited. Arla, the first 3 years of a tree. klaya kerem. It's a forbidden mixture in a vineyard. Bimhevi, and if he does bring it like Kiddush, it doesn't become holy to offer it on in the on Mizbeach. Bikurim's not offered, but
The Bikurim is every year?
yeah, the new fruit.
I thought it was just
That's
First
Neta
few years.
Revi. It's called Neta Revi. Fourth year. It's called Neta Revi. Planting of the fourth year. But the Bikurim is a every year around Shavuos time they would see the new fruits. They put a string around it. I don't know if it's a red string. Maybe it was red. I don't remember. Red string you might be remembering from the parsha last week. The way they put his hand up. And maybe it was red. I don't remember. It says Gemi. I thought it meant like some sort. Gemi was some sort of string. Anyway. But now on this, some say that Rav said Vitem Ravasi, Amarav Vitem Ravasi like Kiddush Likarev. It didn't become consecrated that it should be allowed to be brought up to the altar. Aval Kiddush Lipasul, but it became consecrated enough that it becomes invalid. Yeah. But it's only problematic. It has no positive side to that. Taner Rabbanon, start in a brisa. Clay kodesh nikfu. Let's say there is a service vessel, a holy vessel that has a hole in it. Ein matichan oisem. You can't weld the is that the word that they use there? Melting down. But here, I don't want to say melting down because here it has to do with you're not actually melting the whole thing down. You would just melt around the hole.
It sounds like welding.
It's more welding than melting down. Rashi says you would melt around the hole so that it should cover it in. Or avar. You don't put lead inside the hole. This would be to solder, not weld, but to solder. This is much easier. Take a soft metal and you just heat it up, and it's like a patch. Put it in, right? Welding, you have to use the original material, to heat it up hotter. So you don't. We're not patching it up, and we're not doing these types of patches. Nifkamu.
The starter, they use it a lot, like electrical
Yeah.
appliances, and then welding is more like for a gate.
Right.
Heavy duty.
Right. Well, the solder they're using a soft metal, and then there's one of the metals that it melts in your hand. This they heat it up a little bit. Nifkamu, let's say it got they translate Nifkamu, it got a defect. What?
Could it be
A nick. Okay. Ein misaknaisim. You don't fix it. Because when you fix it, it's still recognizable that you had to fix it. Sakin shenifkam. What about a knife that also got a nick? Ein mashchiznas pigimasa. It sounds a little crazy. They can't sharpen the knife. Nishmita ein machzir naisay. If the knife came out of the handle, you don't put it back in. Abashal sakin mitarefes pesa b'mikdash. There was a knife that had a nick, or no, a knife that would get a nick easily. They had it in the mikdash, and they put it in shemus. Special type of shemus. Put it away, but not to use it because they weren't going to fix it. That sounds difficult. Never. The sheikhtim are always sharpening the knife. Here they would have to make a knife, and that was it. You only used it till it became dull. Right?
It's like a disposable.
Yeah, that's apparently.
We had something like that by the vessels. Like
One-time use vessels. Oh, the earthenware vessels. Yeah, that was clay. That's actually disposable. Those are clay vessels. That's different. Taner Rabbanan was starting in the brayso. They couldn't nice and machat. The way they would make the big dekuna, they wouldn't make it like a regular tailor makes cloth and then he sews the cloth together. Rather, alamaisa oirig, they would have to do the whole weaving all together. I'm not sure how they would do that. How they could weave it in a circle that it should be. Is that how they're translating it? Had to be woven already prepared. Needlework, sewing. My sorry, their weavers work. Oh, they don't have any notes on that. Oh, they do. As it says, Shenemar Maisa 33. The vestments should not be woven as sheets of cloth and then sewn into their intended shapes, but should be woven into their final form without any seams. This does not include the sleeves. Oh, okay. Which are woven separately and then attached. Okay, fine. They resolved the issue. Okay. If you don't include the sleeves, then you can imagine how they could do that, because it would just be, let's say the meal or something, or the gartel was just one long thing, or the hat was just one long thing that was wrapped around, or the ephod. Okay. Niskalu. Let's say it got dirty. Ein mechapsim meisam lei beneter of lei ba'ohel. Neter are in ohel, ahel are two types of soap. Neter is, they translated there? The Quran would give me a translation. Nat, it would give me a
natron.
natron. And what's natron? Well, it's at does it say what it's made from?
Yeah, it says this word most likely refers to sodium carbonate, which commonly occurs as a clear crystal.
Uh-huh. Sodium carbonate. Is that some like baking soda or something? Sounds like something we have in the house. That's baking soda? Oh, okay. And then what's the other one? Ahal. Ahal is also something that comes from a plant. What did I say here? So several plants. Several plants are okay. An ice plant. Yeah. My wife uses this homemade soap. She gets these nuts called soap nuts. She boils them up. She makes detergent.
Warren has a picture here.
Yeah, I see like a flower.
Yeah.
What are we learning?
Comes from nuts or other things. Where are we holding? We're on the bottom of Peiches Amid Aleph. We're talking about if the clothing got dirty, you don't wash it. The kain got not the kain got the kain's clothing. You don't use soap to clean it. B'mayim mechabsim. It's mashma, but with water you can clean it. So dafk with soap. Amar Abaya. Abaya says now the kasha is that why are we not washing it? Because this is like there's an expression ein anias b'makam ashiras. Where there's wealth, you don't see poverty. And washing clothing is like poverty. You have to reuse the clothing. So the problem is, but what do you mean? When washing with water is also this anias that we have to clean it up. So Amar Abaya hachi kamar, hugu b'mayim, that if it got so dirty that if it only got dirty where you would need water to clean it, then then you're allowed to clean it even with soap because it's not so dirty. Rather, but if it got dirty, that it went to the level where you would need soap to clean it, you have to send it to the dry cleaners. And after you can't even use water to clean it. Depends how dirty it got. Some argue and say they don't clean it at all, even if it was only minorly, a little thing. I guess it was like where you spot clean it, you just just a paper towel. Yeah. You don't have poverty in a place of wealth. Okay. Tanu Rabbanan was taught in the Brisa. Me'il Kulei. Thank you. Me'il is the not the apron. It's a like a gown, right? It's the Kohen Gadol war. Kulei shel tchelas was entirely made of this blue wool that you see it sometimes on people's tzitzis nowadays. Shenemar v'yasis me'il ha'ephod klil tchelas. You make the me'il of the ephod. The ephod went on top of it, so it was entirely tchelas. Shulav Ketzad. What was on the bottom of the me'il? Maybe tchelas for agaman of Tilashani Shazam Yachid. You would bring blue wool, purple wool, red or scarlet, and it was spun together. Well, Isan is not spun. It's not spun together. It's twisted together. They would spin the threads independently, and then they would twist them together. And they would make them like pomegranates, but the mouth didn't open. I guess the top of the pomegranate like spreads out when it gets ripe. This was still like closed. I don't know what that means. There's something to do with the head of a spear. Let me see what this means. And they're sewn and not yet right, not okay, for the crown on the top to open, and as cones of the helmets that are found on the heads of children. Let's just see what they say. Oh, cones of the helmets. Klinois, apparently from the Greek word, refers to a sharp point or a cone. All right.
Oh, so this pomegranate is like where they came up with the design of the bells?
No, not yet. The bells is coming up. These are the pomegranates, and then there's also going to be bells. And then maybe shivim b'shnayim zogim. Oh, I forgot the words for it. What's the outer part of the bell? What's the inner part of the bell? What's the thing that bangs in the bell? What's it called? Let's see over here. The outer part of the bell is the bell, the bell shape, right? And then the inner part of the bell clappers. That's it. Okay, the outer part and then the clapper. I thought there was a word for that clapper. What's the thing that on the old clocks that goes back and forth?
Pendulum.
Okay, a pendulum. Pendulum. Okay, but I guess they don't use that word for the bell. It's just called the clapper. Okay, so you bring 72 of these outer ones, shebehem, and inside them is shivim shayim inbalim. There's the inbal, which is the clapper that makes the noise. B'toilam behen, and you hang them between the pomegranates. Shleishim v'shisha b'tzad zeh. Shleishim v'shisha b'tzad zeh. Now, how many they would have 72 of these bells? It means 36 on each side of this gown. Right, there was the front and the back. So 36 on the front, 36 on the back. Reb Daisa Omer Mishum Rab Yehuda. Reb Daisa says, name Rab Yehuda. There was only 36 in total, not 72. Shmei Nesri Mitzad Zeh, 18 on each side. He cut the whole thing in half. how many there were, like how tightly packed this was. Amar Rab Inyani Bar Sasson. Isn't that interesting? It's a new name for us. Machlekes Khan, the same way we have machlekes over here about how many pomegranates there are between Reb Daisa and the Chachamim. We have the same machlekes by Kach machlekes b'Maris Nagayim. There's a discussion over there about the different shades of teras. The Tanan, Maris Nagayim. How many types of teras are there? Leprosy. Reb Daisa ben Horkanes Aimer Shleishim Meshisha says it's 36. Kavi ben Mahalal Shimmer Shnaim. Kavi ben Mahalal says there's 72. Just like we have over here. V'amar Rabbi Yani bar Sasson. Another statement from this stage. What's the connection? The karbanos, why are they put right next to each other? The karbanos put next to the big dekuna. To teach you big dekuna, just like the karbanos atone, also the big dekuna atone. Now we're going to go through the big dekuna here and say how they atone. Now, someone needs to bring a karban. He's got to bring a karban. Can say that there's a big dekuna. It's going to atone instead. What it's referring to is that every sin also contains a certain element of guilt on the community. Why didn't you stop him? Why didn't you educate them better? Just like by the Egla Rufa, the elders of the city needed to go down because we couldn't find the person. But the elders if we find the person, if we know who killed him, right? If we know a murderer, we know who was killed. So the community has to make sure that that justice is done, right? So there's two parts to this. There's the justice, that's the obligation on the community, whether it's education or justice, and then there's also the part that the individual has. So here we're talking about the part that's the guilt that goes on the community. So let's take a look. Ksainas mechaperes al shvichus damim. Ksainas atones for murder. Shenemar b'yishchus tesir yizim yitvlas ksainas badam. How appropriate this week's parsha. It says they took the coat. They slaughtered a goat, and they dipped the ksainas into the blood. Yeah. So the ksainas is associated with atonement for murder. That's going to atone for it. Well, the pants is an atonement for adultery or other types of forbidden relations. You should make for them pants to cover the flesh of nakedness. The hat is an atonement for people that are haughty. Minayin, how do you know this? It says, it says something that's very high, you should atone for something that's high. It feels high, feels arrogant. The gartel, the belt that atones for thoughts of Aveira. The Gemara explains because it's exactly wrapped around the heart. Right? The belt goes around the heart. The choshen, which is the breastplate, that atones for corrupt judgment. It says you should make the choshen mishpat. Ephod is this apron. It atones for idolatry. Shenemar ein ephod u'trafim. Where's this pasuk? In Hosea. Pasuk says, many days the Bnei Yisrael sat without a king, without a minister. There's no sacrifices. There's no altar. There's no ephod or trafim. Trafim would mean idols, the small idols. What it means is, in the pasuk, that if there's no ephod, then you could see the sin of the trafim. If there is an ephod, then you don't see it, because the ephod atones for the atones for the sin. Me'il, which is what we were talking about before with the pomegranates and the bells, mechaper al lashon hara, it's an atonement for lashon hara. Minayin, how do you know that? Rab Chanina says, Yavadavar shebekol v'yechaper al kol hara. Something that makes noise should atone for something else that makes noise, which is the lashon hara.
Just like the Negayim.
I'm sorry?
Above, the comparison was between the pomegranates and Negayim. And which comes from...
The Gemara is going to ask a contradiction in a minute.
Yeah, but it seems like it's about Negayim come from lashon hara, right?
Yeah. It's going to ask on the contradiction on some of them. So 1 second. The bell wasn't atoning for Negayim. The bells were, there was a comparison to how many bells there were, because Reb Daisa says the same thing over here as he says over there. There's 36 there. Like, that was just a comparison in Mishnayos.
Yeah, but it seems like they're intrinsically related somehow.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Tzitz mechaper alasas panim. The front plate atones for brazenness. Betzitz ksiv. It says regarding tzitz vayal meitzach Aaron. It's on the forehead of Aaron. Bazas panim, regarding brazenness, it says meitzach isha zayna hayalach. The forehead of a woman that's promiscuous is what you have. That's in Yirmiyahu. It's talking about why there was a famine or something. Well, now the Gemara asks the question, Eini, is this really so, the way you're saying it, about the Ksainas, that it atones for Lashon Hara? I'm sorry, that the Ksainas atones for Shvichas Damim, and the Me'il atones for Lashon Hara. V'amar Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi says, Shua ben Levi was great in Agadata, the Gemara Bava Metzia says, Shnei Dvarim le'matzin l'kapara b'karbanos. There's two things that don't have an atonement amongst the sacrifice of matzin l'kapara makamacha, but there's a different atonement. Belohein, they are Shvichas Damim Lashon Hara. Shvichas Damim Me'egla Rufa. Murder, the atonement comes from Negla Rufa. Lashon Hara Miktaris, and Lashon Hara is atoned for by the Ktaris. So the Tani Rab Chanina, how do you know that the Ktaris is an atonement? Where was it? Where did it say this? When did the plague break out? What was this? Was this after the spies?
After
Miriam and Aaron?
No, I don't remember that. No, there was a plague that broke out amongst the people, and Aaron went around with the Keteris, and it stopped. After Kairach, people were saying that the Keteris kills, and then they said no, the Keteris heals. This is on Bamidbar Yud Zayin.
This is Tezayin.
Yeah. The next day, the people complained. They said, "You killed the congregation." The people complained to Vayuleinu kol das ben Yisrael Moshe v'Aaron atem emitim esam Hashem, and then
swallow them up.
After they got swallowed up, and the people started complaining that you're killing the people.
But they're talking about the people that died.
The people that died.
In the earth?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense.
And then, yeah.
They didn't need the incense to kill the people. The people went into the earth.
No, they brought the incense, and all the people that they were told to, all those people that got swallowed were told to bring the incense. And no, then there was a fire came out and killed the 250 people that were bringing the incense. So Moshe tells Aaron, take the fire pan and go around, put keteris in it. You'll atone for the people. Okay. There was how many people died in the plague? There was 14,700. Besides for those that, okay, so we see that the keteris is also an atonement for the people that were complaining. Calling that lashon hara here. Ma minayin the Tani minayin l'kteres mechaperes v'itin es kteres v'chaper Tani to be Rabbi Shmuel was taught in the yeshiva Rabbi Shmuel. Ma kteres mechaperes. What does the kteres atone for? Al lashon hara. Why? Yavad avisha b'chashai v'chaper al ma'aseh chashai. How is lashon hara spoken? You have to go like this. You whisper to someone. So, and the kteres is also brought in the sanctuary. Something that's hidden atones for something else that's hidden. Now they do it online. He says, we don't have online Ketara stuff. So, Kasha Lashon Hara, Lashon Hara. And so, what's going on over here? Before we said that what's the Lashon Hara? That's the Me'il, right? The noise of the Me'il. Now you're telling me that's the Ketaris. And Kasha Shvichazam, before you said that the Kasainus atones for murder. The kasainus, which was made out of, did we say what it was made out of here? It was the kasainus means also a gown, also a upper. No, the me'il was the outer one. The kasainus was the one that was under. And we said that atones for shvichas dam. Now you're telling me that it's the egla rufa that it atones. Where it says like kasha hadidei hadiyadiya man katle hadleidiya man katle. Depends. If we know who killed the person, and then we're going to bring justice, so then the kasainus atones for the congregation. If you don't know who killed him, then we need the egla rufa to atone. The Gemara says, "What are you talking about? If we know who killed him, so then we have to kill him, and that would be the atonement for the people by carrying out the justice." It says the Mezer v'Layasrbe. We're talking about where he killed on purpose and he wasn't warned, so we can't kill him. We can't carry out the justice. So the community still has the guilt of carrying out justice. They don't have that, and they can't carry it out. So we have the atonement that comes from the Ksainus. It says, what about Lashon Hara? We had a contradiction if it's the Me'il, the noise of the Me'il, or if it's the K'tairis. Nami like Lashon Hara, Lashon Hara, Nami like Kasha. B'tzina, it depends. If it's Lashon Hara that's B'tzina, then the K'tairis atones for that. If it's B'far Hesia, if it's Lashon Hara in public, online, right? So then the Me'il atones for that. Yeah. I don't know. Something else. Okay, let's go to the new chapter. We have a little bit more time.
There's only one problem with that, right?
What's that?
The complaint against Moshe and Aaron was in public.
Oh. Yeah, how do you want to answer that? Do they have a note?
What do you mean? That somebody died. That was not the people who died who weren't forgiven.
It would seem the Sfas Emes, Daniel and the Sfas Emes have the following question. It says it would seem that the slander directed against Moses and Aaron concerning the death of Korach and his followers was spoken in public. Yet the previous slated verse states explicitly that it was the burning of the incense which atoned for it. He suggests that the slanderers merely insinuated that Moses and Aaron were responsible for the deaths of Korach and his followers, but did not make their claim overtly, since their slander was that of innuendo, and not open disparagement. It was considered lashon hara spoken in private, and as such subject to atonement through the burning of the incense.
Wow.
Is that acceptable, Daniel?
Yeah.
Or it's the best? It's the best you got.
Pretty good. I'm not gonna argue with Sfas Emes.
Okay. So that's a new parak. New parak. When you have two karbanos, you have to bring. Which one comes first? So the one that's more frequent comes first. It's called tader v'sheina tader kaidem. Yeah, you have a rule.
The same by the brachas.
Same by brachas, exactly. And you have it's Rosh Chodesh on Shabbos. Which one do you say Ritzei first, the Alav Yavai? Ritzei. Shabbos is more frequent than 52 times a year, as opposed to 12 times a year. 18. That's 2 days Rosh Chodesh.
I sent him a picture.
Oh.
Of the Kohen Gadol in case anyone.
There's a picture Dr. Stein sent of the Kohen Gadol on the chat. Okay. According to this, the carbon tamid, which is brought every day in the morning and afternoon, that comes before the carbon musaf. Musaf is only brought on special days. Musaf Shabbos, the musaf of Shabbos, which is more frequent, 52 times, comes more frequent than Rosh Chodesh. Musaf Rosh Chodesh, Musaf Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Chodesh comes before Rosh Hashanah. We're talking about when Shabbos is Rosh Chodesh. Which one do you bring first? When on Rosh Hashanah, which you have to bring a carbon of Rosh Chodesh, to bring that goat. And you also have other carbonos of Rosh Hashanah, so you bring the Rosh Chodesh one first. Because it says regarding the Musaf Shenemar, besides for the Eilas Satamid that was brought, you should also do this. The pasuk is coming to tell me that the Musaf is brought only after the carbon tamid. Besides for that, that was brought first. It's interesting. We have a pasuk that teaches me. It's not logic. It's actually we learn from a pasuk. Minalan. Oh, that's interesting. Now the Gemara asks. Minalan. The Gemara asks on the question. Minalan. Why are you asking a question? Right? Question on a question. Why are you asking a question? The Mishnah says the answer. It says Malvadai Lasabaika, which tells me. Gemara says what the Gemara meant to ask. Dilma Timidim Heinakadma Masafin. Mishum de Tadiri. Maybe I know the carbon tamid comes before the carbon musaf because that's very common. Carbon tamid is every day. Musafin lemusafin minalan. How do I know that I also look at the musaf itself? How frequent is the carbon musaf? The Shabbos to the Rosh Chodesh, etc. How do I know that comes first? Some Rabbi Lai, Damakra, Rabbi Lai says that the pasuk says Keila tasu layim shivas yamim. Keila, is that the Keila? I can't see the trap they quote the pasuk, but they don't tell me the trap. So this tells me, what is this pasuk talking about? It's about the carbon musaf of Pesach. You should bring it 7 days. We do Eila, we make a drasha, Eila ka'ela. Just like what was said before, is Mulvad Eila Sabayker, besides for the carbon tamid, you should also do Tases Eila, you should do these. So too, when it comes to the carbon musaf, you do the one that's first. Ka'ela, you do it like Eila, Tasuas Eila, just like the carbon tamid comes before the Eila, which is the musaf. Also, the different musafim are done Ka'ela like that, which means the one that's more frequent comes first. The Gemara asks, how can you learn a drush out of this if you need that pasuk to tell me that you actually just bring the carbon 7 days? It's not just on the first day. If that's the case, if it was just teaching me that one thing, then nichtav eila tasu without the chaf, we just say this is not like this. Let's say this is what you do for each of the 7 days. Gemara says, 1 second, you can't say that. Ikasav eila tasu layim shivas yamim hava mina l'shivas yamim in midachin elai. If it would say that you do it for 7 days, that this is what you do for 7 days, then I would think that I wouldn't know that you have to do it every day. I would just think that you do it for the 7 days. Just once. So then you're going to have to take out these words in midachini. The Gemara says, no, you wouldn't think that it was just once for the 7 days. It says like Yom Ksiv. It says for the day, which means that I would know that I would bring it every single day. Vakati ema eila layoim, aval shar yoime layadana kama. I would have thought that you bring on the first day this sacrifice, but I wouldn't know on the other days how many to bring. So it has to say ka eila to tell me the same thing that I brought on the first day, I bring on the other days. So now we're left with a question. Therefore, I need the word ka'ela to teach it to me. So why are you telling me that I can learn from ka'ela? I'm using the word ka'ela to teach me that the sacrifice is brought on each of the 7 days. Amar tasu, it says that you shall do. Yukalasi Shabbos, which would tell me that each one is going to be, every day is going to be brought equally, even without the word ka'ela.
Why can't we do some sort of gezerah shove from the seed? There's no word in there that the Gemara could find. Just like there, everything was the same.
I'm not sure. Abaya says, Migufa dekra, you can learn from the pasuk itself that the musaf come before a different musaf, imkain, because if it was only the carbon tamid that came before the other karbanas, lemakram malvadei lasabayker. Let us just say, besides for the morning elevation offering, v'tishtek, and then be quiet. Asher lo ilasa tamid lamali. Why does it have to go on and say, which is the oila of the tamid? I know what carbon is brought in the morning. So elameimar dahach tiktum. It's come to tell me that everything that comes before, that everything that's more frequent always comes before.
Mr. Rabbi Stein asked a very good question.
Rabbi Stein, Dr. Stein.
It says, call Todah B'Chaveri Todah Kodim. So we don't start to work with Exer Shava. First, we try to work with the psukim, with the words. If we can't find anything, then we start with other things.
Yeah. So here, what the Gemara is doing is, it's not just that it becomes more frequent. It's not just that the Oilas HaBaiker comes before the Musaf. The fact that it elaborates, it says Asher La Oilas HaTamid, and it calls it the Tamid, which means constant. So that tells me that whatever is more frequent, that extra explanation is coming to tell me anything that's more frequent is going to be is going to always have precedence. Okay, let's leave it by the Mishnah. Call him a Kodesh. So.
Sorry, that is.
Turn it on.
Thank you.
Okay.